Malawi, protests have been suspended for now, but citizens remain diligent in their push for change for the nation of 13 million people. A repeat of last month's violent protests in various Malawi cities was averted yesterday. Leading rights groups heeded to an injunction against the rally that was to be in protest of President Bingu Mutharika and his government. Civil society groups have agreed to a United Nations facilitated mediation to address their concerns about chronic poverty. Despite postponing the protest, or vigil as the organizers called it, tension remained high. The usually peaceful country was brought to a standstill by the closure of shops and banks in the main cities and the heavy presence of police anticipating violence. Citizens are angry about the continuing shortages of fuel and foreign exchange and allegations of misuse of power by Mr. Mutharika and his government.
My wish is for this government to repeal the laws. The main issue here is about the abuse and flouting of laws by this government. Maybe others do not know, but the issue that Malawians are worried about is the changing of laws. This will make this country fall.
Reacting to calls for the protests, Mr. Mutharika, a former World Bank economist, warned there could be more bloodshed if protests proceeded, echoing earlier threats by the army to step up force if violence flared. 19 unarmed citizens were killed in last month's protests, and 58 others were reportedly shot by police. News of the postponement of Wednesday's protests was welcomed by many who still remember the July 20th violence.
I'm happy that the protests have been postponed. Look, during the July 20 demonstrations, I lost a very close friend who was shot. So this may bring back the peace that we've had in the past.
The postponement is a good gesture. It's a lesson to the government because today's protest would have been the worst.
Civil rights groups are demanding the president declare his wealth and solve the shortage of fuel and forex that they say has slammed the economy. Protest organizers also want Mutharika to restore diplomatic relations with Britain, the country's former colonial power. Britain stopped giving aid to Malawi after Mutharika expelled its ambassador over criticism of his leadership. Aid accounts for 40% of the country's revenues.
Look, you've got to bury your pride. When you're a poor country like Malawi, there are times when sovereignty is at stake. And even in a globalized world, the fact that you join international borders, you are ceding part of your sovereignty because you belong to other bodies. Therefore, you must play by the rules of the international order. If you play out of the rules of the national order, the international order will be squeezing you. And eventually, your people will be squeezed. So economically, it will be very, very difficult to survive through.
The aid freeze has left a yawning hole in the country's budget, as well as intensified a dollar shortage that this week saw the government devalue its kwacha currency by 10% against the US dollar. Rising tensions with aid donors and the government's violent crackdown on protests has cost Malawi close to $1 billion in foreign aid. Amnesty International says protesters risk being shot dead unless police stop using live ammunition.
The world is not doing enough to prevent massive potential starvation for Somalia's children.